Hi folks, so in the last tutorial, which was the basic teacher's Marksheet tutorial, we simply covered retrieving the Marksheet from the stored location that you would have been notified about by your admin staff, and then placing that file into your own storage location in order to work on it and edit it. So for instance, we're sitting with one here on a flash drive. So now, excuse me, we open this. Okay, I've been entering a few marks here and there. So we can do a few more just to check. So for instance, so the first thing I want to point out here, well, let's just go through a couple of things we're going to cover in this one. We're going to, as I say, cover the capturing of it, covering the capture of your mark sheet, the marks, even the comment. I'm not going to dive into the formulas in this particular tutorial. I'll dedicate more tutorials specifically to formula building and checking versus SAMS, which is something that the academic heads will have to be in cahoots with the admin staff in terms of the profiles that are set up in SAMS, so that you've got the right formulas in your mark sheets, and admin staff will communicate with me, and I can assist with drawing up any of these formulas, and of course, I'm going to try and go through as many sort of the general examples, for each phase. So you have home languages and maths and the more common ones. Then I want to just show you once you're done putting the mark sheet into its completed folder, whereby the administrator will do the imports from. Then, and it is possible to put something in the completed folder and the administrator to do the imports. And even if your sheet is not completed, it could be half completed, perhaps you just want to see the outcome if in the time being, or maybe the academic head or the administrator wants to do a test run, or they want to see the marks as they are so far, see who's captured what, which they can tell by when the marks come into front office. They can see who still needs to capture what. So you can get halfway through your work, put a copy of the sheet in even at the time, and then carry on working on your mark sheet, and then just replace the mark sheet that you originally put in the completed folder. We'll go through that, and then I just want to actually show you actually producing it in SAMS, and comparing it to what you've got. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a quick look and compare it to the SAMS, to the look of the mark sheet in SAMS, because as I said in the previous tutorial, on the face of it, it looks quite different, but it's not actually. I'm going to take you through that. So, first of all, let's do that. Let's do the comparison to SAMS in terms of the face value. Okay, so we have SAMS open. Going to go to the mark sheet location. All right, we'll choose that set. Okay, and as you can see, we can't actually resize this window. It's this or maximum. So, but we'll just look at it in this view for now, and then I'll bring it up bigger on the screen so it's clearer. But so you can see where I've actually done one import already for a learner. Sorry, folks, if you heard background noise there. That's just my daughter playing with her toys there. That's not really that someone's strangling a pig in the background. Okay, So as I said, I've already done one. um, so you'll notice that in SAMS you've got these red columns, for want of a better word. They are essentially calculated fields, if you like. They're, each it's actually the case that you have tasks. All right, every subject has got tasks, and that is why we called our columns task columns. Um, but tasks can be broken down into activities. So in this case, some of the tasks have got two activities. Um, Now, it was the case in previous years of SAMS 2017 where if a task only had one activity, it wouldn't show this activity column. You would simply enter the mark straight into the task column. Um, and and in the case where you bring up a subject, and we can even do this now. Let's bring up say grade 10 accounting. I don't remember which one I might have done. You see, in a case like this, they only had tasks, so they don't have an activity column for each task. Um, they don't have one activity column for each task. It would just be doubling up. So you wouldn't have an activity column with the mark and then it gets calculated in the task column, which would showing the exact same thing. Okay. But in the case of, let's say, English um, for grade 8, it's slightly different in the sense that because you do have tasks, for one, you do have tasks that have got multiple activities, so they show the activities. But even when you've got a task with one activity, they show an activity column. Um, and that's because, well, it shouldn't actually be the case because I would say that perhaps they wanted to weight it differently. Um, but you can see that the total mark for that is the same anyway. And again, we're not going to dive too heavily into the weightings and things now because I'll discuss that in a formula building exercise, which will probably be aimed more at the sort of academic heads or whoever in the school wants to get involved. I was going to say is shelved with the responsibility, but some of us nerds find it quite fun, fortunately for planet Earth. So the it's just a little joke. the So okay, the important thing here basically that I'm trying to say is just don't get confused. For those of you who, for many of you, you wouldn't have even seen the SAM screen, so you wouldn't be worried. You'd just be looking at your thing going, okay, I've got 4 tasks to do this term. I've got to have a test out of that, and a test out of that, and a test out of that, and put the score in. Okay, again, there are ways in SAMS of adjusting the profiles. If the profiles are adjusted, the mark sheets need to be regenerated so that these columns are generated for the teachers. On a side note, the department had at workshops asked told schools, no, don't change the profiles that are come standard with SAMS. They're correct, which over the years haven't been, and they've gotten more accurate in terms of marrying it with the CAPS curriculum document. But there are still discrepancies and anomalies. Like, for instance, it's been brought to my attention that computer applications technology, the profile in SAMS is wrong. So in that case, again, this is not really relevant to you, but I suppose it's worth looking at in the sense that one would go to the screen in SAMS and there are various things to go through in terms of these buttons here, edit the task and to change the total marks and even the weightings. To note here that anything that is a formal assessment can't actually be changed. So a lot of this can't sort of be changed. But yes, there are cases where they can be changed and actually should be changed, and we'll try and pick those out. But we will be putting a document out for the staff, especially the academic heads, into our front office cloud folder, which your admin staff have access to. So any of these things crop up, and this is the beauty of the front office share community. People share these instances, they give it to us, and we are the conduit through which everyone has the shared information. We put it out into the cloud, and people can access these things and have a look at. Already someone from Pinetown Boys High School, very grateful to them, have put together a little document on what to do and how to change for that cat situation, for instance. But anyway, let's just carry on here. I don't want each recording to be too long, so I think I'm going to even break this one up into another part. So again, folks, just to reiterate, don't be confused by the fact that you may be looking at a screen in SAMS that is different. Just understand essentially that anything that these columns in the mark sheets are essentially anything that you're going to capture in SAMS. So if we look at the screen in a more maximized view, it's these columns here, right? The yellow columns in this case. And as I say before, if there is only a pink column with no activity associated to it in SAMS, in other words, something you capture into, then it would be that would be one that you'd be capturing into the mark sheet. Like for instance, if I click on this, I can't actually capture in there. If I click in here, I capture a 6. It puts that 6 across there. So this is it's not really relevant to you to have to see the calculated tasks in this. We wanted to make it less confusing by simply saying the columns you see are the columns you set and set up test marks for. When they get pushed through to SAMS, the SAMS system will do its own calculations that it wants in terms of these calculated task fields. And then, as I say again, we will show you the formula for report marking, and then in term 2 and so on, these class mark and exam marks become more relevant, but that will cross that bridge when we come to it. So to get back to the point, so you can enter your marks in here. Of course, if you enter a mark that's too big, so this is out of 15 and you're putting a 17 in, okay, and you press enter, it's going to tell you that the value doesn't match the validation restrictions defined for this cell. In other words, you've entered a mark that's too high for the test, so it won't allow you to do that. So that cancels out those sorts of errors, which is great. Just simply click retry and fix your typo. Okay, if you click tab, you'll go across the screen. All right. If you press enter, you will go down the screen. Again, it's Excel. I was going to say like Excel, it is Excel. So all those tools and functionalities. Well, this is a protected worksheet, so there is a limited amount of editing you can do, really, and you can only do the editing in these blocks, which is intentional. You can, of course, go to a second sheet where you do have options to use all these tools, and you can copy and paste data across and build things and make things neat and pretty for your own calculations and stats. But again, that's going to be a separate tutorial going through things like that, and people who've been doing this in schools for a long time make way better things than what we do, so to speak, because this isn't really where we dive into in terms of building Excel spreadsheets and that. But we will get great samples out there, and we will put content out so that people can have ideas and share content, and it will benefit everybody. So, all right, let's enter some marks in here. 17, all right, let's say 58. All right, and so now you could even go save this sheet into your completed folder, and even without capturing the report mark so far, because SAMS is going to take these marks, slot them in where it needs to, and it's going to calculate its own report mark, and that's why we build these formulas, so that we kind of reverse engineer, in a sense, this to find the mark that SAMS comes up with, and by doing that, we ensure that the mark that gets pushed through to front office, so this column here has actually got nothing to do with SAMS. It's the mark that's going to get pushed through to front office, and so that is why we come up with a formula that mimics what the SAMS sheet is doing, for instance, but it's not what goes through to SAMS. If I export this now, which we'll do, without putting this mark in, you'll see that SAMS will come up with its own term mark. Um, okay, then all that is needed from you is to tell the sheet which column you want pushed through to front office. Okay, so what I mean by that is in front office, this for term one, it's simple. You're going to put a 1 above the report mark column because you quite simply want this mark to go through to the term 1, that's the term 1 column, or what we call the report display 1 column in front office. Right, in term 2, you might have the report display 2 column in front office might be the class mark. The report display 5 column might be the exam mark. And so you would put a 2 above that and a 5 above that, and then on the report it uses a weighting to calculate the final term 2 mark. But again, that's a bridge we'll cross when we come to it. So you've entered your marks. Many of you have comment codes. Almost all of you have comment codes, which you can simply put into here. Again, this normally is more relevant for term 2, but there are some of you who have subject comments on all of your reports. It is there, and then of course, if you wanted to write your own personal comment that wasn't available on the comment code list, you would put that under own comment. And just note that every school has its own protocol and policies. Some schools don't allow teachers to use their own comments, so don't enter their own comment if you're a school that may only choose from the editable comments. Okay, so basically what you've done now, let's say that you've finished that, you haven't, as I say, hypothetically done the report mark part of it, the term mark part of it. We're just pushing it through to SAMS to get the mark produced in SAMS. And you don't have to wait for that to happen, just to reiterate, but I'm just going to do it for the sake of display purposes. I mean, if I copied this this formula into here, it would give me a mark, okay, but I'm going to take it out for now. So alright, you click save. Okay, and then close. Now you've got your flash drive, you go back to school. And so I say what's nice about the cloud folder is you work on it and you leave it there and it's already at school. So you go Control C or right click copy, and you go back to, when you get back to school, you go to your server location, which, as I say, for some of you might be the shared drive, something like this. And in there should be, in the Marksheets folder, or on your shared drive, there should be a folder called completed. It can be called anything you wanted, folks. If you want to give it a more specific, I'm just calling it completed as a sort of generic form. You can have, it doesn't have to be directly on your shared folder. It could be, you could have subfolders here saying, term 1 completed, or you can get more specific about it. But what I do like about just dumping all of the mark sheets for all the phases, for all the teachers, for all the grades into the completed folder is that when you point the import system from front office, you point it at that folder, it rifles through all of them. Doesn't matter what phase it is, grade it is. If you do it by phase, for instance, or by grade, or by teacher, or something like that, then you're going to have to point it at that folder, run the import, then browse again, point it at another folder, run the import. Again, that's more for the admin staff, but it's worth knowing anyway. So you as the teacher you've copied it from your flash drive and you paste it into the completed folder. All right, for my purposes, I'm just going to put it into my complete folder. That was just to demonstrate to you. Okay, oops. Okay. And right, now what I'm going to do is an import. So I'm not going to take you through that whole process. It's more for administrators, so I'll be pausing. Right, so I've done a SAMS synchronization. I can just show you a quick, totally random sample report. Let's obviously not a real report, it's just a quickly slapped together a report just to show you the mark coming through for term 1. That was one of the learners from the mark sheet, which you can see corresponds with the mark that you've sent through to the report. Okay, so that's the report mark that came on there. And I'll quickly take you into SASAMS to show you the marks have been pushed through to there. Okay, so you can see in SASAMS the marks have come through. There's your marks that correspond with the marks in there. And you can see, as I said, you see these columns calculate themselves, right? Now, we can see that the mark that came through, just pull this onto the screen, for the child that got 56. Okay, you see that didn't come from the mark sheet, that got calculated, and you can see that that's why I purposefully left the third one blank, because you see how SASAMS has calculated the mark. Now, as I say, I've go through these sheets. There is this isn't I'll do a specific tutorial on formula generation. There is a more generic formula that most of them follow, and as I say, some of them, your sort of English home language phase 3, tend to get a bit funky, and so we work out the formula, which in this case was this bad boy that you see at the top here, and I know it's working by virtue of the fact that if I copy and paste that, you see it's 80.93. It rounds off on the mark sheet, but actually, although it displays as a rounded off figure, it in the memory is held as exactly 80.93. And you could see that if you actually go to the term 1 column in FrontOFFICE, and you can actually see that the report mark in SASAMS, this is a report mark that would go through to their schedule, again rounded off, so you can see it matches the one from the mark sheet. And this is just to show you that the mark actually being stored in FrontOFFICE is the mark carrying it actually carries the decimal where it's stored. We keep the number as full as possible, so to speak. This is specifically actually so that through the year you don't lose bits and pieces through rounding, because anywhere where the mark displays, like on a report or a schedule, it rounds. But in terms of the calculation through the year, it retains its decimal integrity, let's call it. So always be careful when you are calculating a child's mark through the year, that you're not just using the rounded figure all the time, because we often get to the end of the year and people say, oh, this child's mark's out by 1% or 2%, but actually the calculation retains the percentage integrity, I beg your pardon, the decimal integrity as far as it can, all the way to the final mark for the year, and at that point it rounds. And at any point in the year where the mark is displayed, you got to imagine it's like a snapshot. It's like the child's mark is evolving through the year as it goes. And when you show a report at term 1 or term 2 or whatever it is, you're taking a snapshot of the evolution of that child's progress through the year. And so then at that point, there's no point showing a report with a decimal. It'll obviously round, but as far as calculations go, in that the integrity of the mark is held. So and then just to show you quickly the comment part of it coming through, that particular report I showed you didn't actually have subject comments on it, but we can find it. There's another place I can show. And here you can see the comment coming through. That was the own comment, that was the comment number, and this is the column that works out which one they used, whether they used own comment or comment number. I beg your pardon, this is the column that interprets the comment number, and this is the column for own comment, and on the report it figures out whether they used own comment or preset comment. So that's the comments coming through. That concludes this tutorial. We'll put part 3 out in terms of various other things, little bits and bobs. For instance, putting the marks into a sheet a second sheet, and fiddling with with them in terms of doing pretty charts or graphs or anything like that. Um, and that's up to folks to get creative with. Really, the world is your oyster. These are the tools that we're providing, and you can use them to great effect. Like I said, I've seen people do amazing things with them. And yes, we will, and of course the tutorials to come showing a more detailed building of formulas.